Strumming is one of those hurdles where people get stuck. So we're going to look at 4 simple strumming patterns right now that sound good and are easy enough to play, and strumming patterns that you're going to be taking with you for years and years to come. Let's go. First thing we'll do is we'll look at the simplest strumming pattern, which is just 4 downstrokes with our strumming hand, and then we switch chords after 4 downstrokes. So we're going to count 4 downstrokes and then change. So let's try G to E minor. Here we go. So one thing to bear in mind when you're doing strums like that is that we want the chord to sound cohesive in this kind of fashion, as opposed to separating individual notes or going through slowly like this. The idea of a chord like that is for all of the strings to ring out at once so that our ears aren't able to distinguish individual notes out of that, and instead are able to just grab an entire chord, all the notes together, and hear it as a chord. Now let's look at a bouncing rhythm. So a bouncing rhythm works similar to the pattern we just looked at, but instead of it being 4 downstrokes, we are going to be separating our downstrokes in this kind of fashion. For the first stroke, you are going to be hitting only the thick strings inside of your chord. And for the second stroke, you're going to be playing the entire chord. And you're going to do that 8 times or 4 big strokes. And it's going to sound and look like this. So you can see what I'm doing there is I'm hitting the thick strings and then I'm playing through the entire chord, and you can hear that I'm doing that 8 times before I switch to the new chord. Now we go back to the 4 down full strums that we did at the beginning, and we are going to look at our first strumming pattern that includes upstrokes. So how this goes, we are going to do a downstroke, and then a down, up, down, up, down. So it goes down, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up, down. So one thing that you should notice here, and one thing that I'm trying to make obvious, is that we are still playing only 4 downstrokes before we switch chords. Every upstroke in between is something that is happening in between our count. So if we count, let's count it out. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's important here to keep your strumming arm moving, even when you are not actually hitting the strings to strum them. That way you are able to keep yourself in this kind of rotational pattern here, and you're only lowering your hand down so that the pick hits the strings when you want it to happen. That helps a lot with separating downstrokes and upstrokes, and also keeps you very easily inside of the rhythm you're trying to go for. And the final pattern we will look at is what we call the folk pattern. So this is used a ton in just about any kind of music, but you'll see it happening the most in folk acoustic guitar kind of music, and it's one of those strumming patterns that everybody should learn, whether you play electric guitar or acoustic guitar, whether you play rock and roll or folk music or pop. This is going to be one of those strumming patterns you're going to see everywhere once you learn to play it, and then you'll be able to recognize it. So this goes like this. I'll play it slowly without the chords so that you can focus on my strumming hand. It goes down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. So do remember that each downstroke is going to be happening on our count. So I'll play that along with a chord now, and I will count out loud, and you will see exactly how that fits in. So it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. So you can see all my downstrokes are still happening on my count, and the upstrokes are happening in between my counts. How do we practice this kind of thing? In addition to learning and understanding the strumming pattern that I just showed you, there has to be a rhythmic flow to it, and there is a very simple way to do that. Now I see with my students quite frequently that they're able to get the strumming pattern right per chord, but they're not able to make their chords sound cohesive together. So there is one great exercise for that. So if we're doing G to E minor as we were, this is the kind of thing that you see a lot, and it happens a lot with beginner guitars. It goes like this. So you see what's happening there. Between each chord, I'm breaking my rhythm. And then you'll have students who say, I'm not a very rhythmic person, I don't have rhythm. But that's not exactly true, it's just because you're practicing things in isolation. So I'll show you what it looks like if things are done cohesively and we actually practice these kind of things in succession. So it'll sound more like this and actually be more rhythmic. That's because I'm having equal amounts of time between my strums, regardless of if I'm in one chord or switching to the next. I want the time to stay the same between my strums, and that's going to apply to all of the strumming patterns that you learn, whether it's the ones from this video or strumming patterns in the future. So I've got my metronome here, and I'm going to turn that on and set it to 60 beats per minute, and using a metronome for an exercise like this is the perfect way to actually get your rhythm to sound rhythmic and to avoid that mistake I just showed you where you are delaying between your chord swaps. So with the metronome on 60 BPM, this is the kind of thing you will expect. So you downstroke for each click. 1. So with the metronome clicks, what you are doing is you're keeping your strum timing the same, whether you're inside of one chord or going from one chord to the next. And that way you are going to be able to build up your rhythm and keep your time perfect as you're learning. There is nothing worse than learning the guitar and feeling as though you have no rhythmic sense. And it's typically issues like this that cause that thought. You start to doubt yourself as opposed to it being an actual thing like you have no rhythm. Remember with your metronome or your drumming backtrack, whether you use drums or a metronome, to start slow and be even. So 60 BPM is typically a good spot to start. I would recommend just searching on YouTube for a 60 BPM drum track and playing along to that, using any one of the 4 strumming patterns that we learned in this video. Or just grab a metronome. Google has a very easy to use metronome. If you just search for a metronome, that works perfectly. So a couple of common mistakes I see a lot that make strumming patterns a big barrier for people, but are very easy to overcome. First thing is your strumming arm tensing either the wrist or the arm. It's got to be a very free and relaxed motion as your arm moves back and forth. Secondly is similar to what I just talked about with using the metronome, is stopping your motion. So the same thing applies to the strumming arm as it does to the fretting hand. And that is going to be if I'm strumming a strumming pattern like down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, and I'm strumming a strumming pattern like this. Stopping my motion with my right arm to switch chords is going to confuse my right hand and also impact the rhythm as it goes forward. So it's important to make sure that your right arm is continuously moving. If you are struggling to get the strumming pattern right, the first thing you can do, and which makes this a lot easier, is to just do it without focusing on your fretting hand at all. Don't even play a chord, sit with your fretting hand rested, relaxed, and just do this. I know that sounds silly, but it does work. It allows us to focus entirely on what the strumming hand is doing as opposed to needing to think about 2 separate places. And there does come a point where it's easy enough to think about both, but depending on at which point of the journey you're at, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So if you need to focus on just one hand, absolutely focus on just one hand. That works great. And then the final thing is, this also ties into the metronome or drumming backtrack, is don't go too fast. Again, start slow. If 60 BPM feels too quick for you, take it down to 50, take it down to 40. There's nothing wrong with going slower right now so that we can go faster later. I understand everybody wants to build up speed and get to a point where we're playing very quickly, and we're able to do that. But the only way we get there is to start slowly and make sure what we're learning right now actually happens smoothly. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.